Hey, everybody. I am Randy Griffin. I'm a member of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, better known as NOBLE. I'm a member of the Washington Metro chapter. Thank you for joining us today for what will be the inaugural podcast episode of the Ride Along podcast, where the Washington Metro chapter of NOBLE connects legacy, leadership, and the future of justice. I am joined today by someone who was quite literally a living history. When Noble was founded, he was there. When the Washington Metro chapter was founded, he was there. He has been the architect for what we know for the Washington Metro chapter and just a wealth of experience and wisdom. Mr. Clay Golston. Hey, Mr. Golston.
Thank you, sir.
I want to talk a little bit, jumping right in, about the symposium in 1976. So there was this symposium in 1976 where 60 of the top Black police executives in the country were brought together. Can you share with me what the purpose of the symposium was and where the sponsorship came from?
Yeah, the sponsorship came from the Police Foundation, LEEA, and the Project for Community Justice. And it was the idea was thought of by Miss Peggy Triplett. She was the one that really got the program started, got it started.
Okay, what was the purpose? Why did this symposium have to happen?
At that time, there was a problem with Black, especially in the Black community. The level of crime in Black communities was very high, and they wanted to come up with a way of addressing the problem with crime in the Black community to try to lessen it.
Okay. So we're in 1976. There is this issue within the urban populations of the country and Black communities. By this time, you had already been on the job for quite a while. You had been with the police department, Metropolitan Police Department, for nearly, what, 20 years? Like, what year did you start with the
I
Metro?
started in '58.
Okay, so yeah, so you were already 18 years into the job when this symposium
Right.
happened. And what rank were you at that time?
I was a captain.
Okay, so you were a captain in 1976. We have this symposium. The purpose is to come up with a way to address urban violence, right? What happened with these 6 law enforcement executives in Washington, D.C. during this 3-day symposium?
What happened?
Yes.
Well, they was in Arlington, Virginia, where they had the symposium, and they attended the symposium to represent the department. And so they, once they arrived there, were surprised to see a number of Black law top level executives from across the country. At that time, they thought it would only be them and maybe a few, but they seized upon the opportunity to determine that that was a good time, that they need to come up with an organization where they could network and support each other. And that's how Noble was really born.
Okay, so we end up having this venue where police executives who, within their respective jurisdictions, were all alone and dealing with the issues associated at that time with being a Black police executive. They come into this symposium and realize that, hey, there's 60 of us here. I imagine they had to have dealt with similar issues in their respective locations, and they come up with this idea and birth what we know to be Noble today. Is that pretty much how that happened?
Yes,
When that symposium was over and the decision was made to, I guess, birth Noble, were there any people from the Washington, D.C. area that were part of that founding process?
Yes, uh-huh.
Okay, can you tell me about those people?
Well, only one that I know that was really a, a major part of it was Bertel Jefferson. And he was the one that sort of brought the information back to the department and spread it around to top Black officials, the ones that didn't attend the symposium. And so that's how it really got started in the Washington area.
So Bertrell Jefferson, who was he and what was his position within the police department?
I'm pretty sure he was assistant chief at the time. He was assistant chief. And then that's when he started recruiting members to join Noble. And he approached me and recruited me, and I joined and have been an active member every day ever since.
All right, so the Washington Metro chapter is pretty much a cornerstone of Noble, one of the first chapters to be formed, in part, large part due to Bertrell Jefferson. The first president of Noble, who was that person?
Hubert Williams from Newark, New Jersey.
Ah, okay. And he was the chief of police.
Chief of police in New Jersey.
And if my memory serves me correct, I think he was the first Black police chief for a major city in this country. So I think I understand why he was selected to be the president at that time. When we talk about Bertrell Jefferson, Chief Jefferson, and his role in being a founder for Noble and being instrumental for the Washington Metro chapter, help me understand what type of person was Bertrell Jefferson?
Bertrell Jefferson was, I guess, a good law enforcement officer, and he had a passion for helping young Blacks to advance in the department. And so when when Noble was formed, right away he became a spokesman for Noble, and he increased the membership in Noble by recruiting young Black executives from top level officers from D.C. And Jefferson had a way of not sort of maybe asking you, but but in a forceful way, and letting you know that it was very important for you and the organization for you to become a member of Noble. So when he approached me about being a Noble, I didn't have second thoughts. I immediately joined and became an active, supportive member.
Okay, so he was a bit of a firecracker.
Oh yeah, he was. And not only that, he was Mr. Noble, and and the way he went about it, and you could tell that he was sincere and committed to Noble, and he was he was a great recruiter for the organization.
All
And
right.
of course, of course, he led by example right away. He was um, the treasurer for the national chapter, for the national organization. So he was saying that I'm a part. So it's letting you know that it was something worthwhile to be a part of.
Wow. Well, I think about today, right? I think about Noble and the awareness of Noble for Black law enforcement today, not just here in the Washington metro area, but across the country. It sounds like that voice was loud and it spread across boundaries of generations and spaces because we have DC, Maryland, and Virginia all closely knit right here. And it sounds like um, everyone at that point, at that time, if you were Black, if you were Black and you were in law enforcement, you knew about Noble. Um, and I think that is sort of, in part, one of the goals today for the organization to make sure that there's an awareness of what Noble does and the benefits of being a part of the organization and how you can benefit the organization by being a part of it. So walk me through the process of the Washington Metro chapter actually being founded. Like, who was responsible, or yeah, who was responsible for, I guess, founding the Washington Metro chapter?
Well, I can say, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I discussed it with Jefferson and Marty Tapscott at the time, who were, I thought would support me. And both of them thought it was a good idea that we start working on forming a chapter. And of course, since I came up with the idea, they sort of, put the onus on me to take the lead. So I willingly took the lead, knowing that I had the support of them, and I took the lead. And at that time, I didn't know that much. I didn't know a lot. Of course, there was not a lot of intercommunication with the top law enforcement executive in the federal sector and surrounding jurisdiction. So I didn't have a lot of contact information for them. So I was able to get that information through Jefferson. And I would got the telephone number from a lot of the top executives from the federal sector and surrounding jurisdiction. And then I contacted Marty to make sure I had his support. And then I would ask Jefferson and Marty what would be a good day to have a good time to have a meeting. And I knew a caterer, Delbert Cross, who did a lot of catering for the police department. And I contacted him and asked him if it would be possible to have a meeting. I was holding a meeting at his place, and he agreed and got a time. And then talked with Jefferson and Marty Tapscott to see which would be a good day and time to start the first meeting. And we got that settled. And then I started calling the executives that I knew that had the phone numbers and invited them to the meeting. And it was really encouraging because a lot of the individuals I didn't know, but when I called them and told them the purpose of the meeting and so forth, all of them willingly came. And so we started having sort of informal meetings like that for on a year or so before the actual chapter was formed.
Mm.
We would have the informal meetings and decide, things that we should, be considering and how we could we would always have a meeting prior to a national conference to decide, what part we would pay in the national conference and what people we should support that would best benefit Noble. And so we would always have that meeting before a national conference. And then later on, after having a number of these informal meetings, we figured it was time to really start the chapter. And then it was around 1983 that we formed the chapter. And of course, at that time, you need to have officers. And normally, it's really tough to get people to step up to take the leadership. But there's no problem at that time getting Officer Marty Tapscott volunteered to be the president. Noah Lawrence, who was Office of Air Force Investigation, he volunteered to be the vice president. And Billy Norwood, who was director of public safety at Howard University, he was the treasurer. And Bob Faison, who was top level executive at the Secret Service, he volunteered to be the secretary. And at that time, the chapter was formed, and that was it. We were off and rolling. And then we started having our regular meetings. And then one thing, Noble really was formed to let the community, especially the black community, know that there was an organization that supported them. It was a way that their problems and could be addressed and so forth. So first thing we did after forming the organization, we had a complimentary luncheon where we invited the community out for free lunch and to had a little video that we had put together, told them about what Noble was all about and what Noble could do for the community and so forth. And
So you mentioned Marty Tapscott a couple of times. He was an assistant chief at the time, right?
no, he wasn't assistant chief at that time.
Okay, what role did he play
He was probably just a captain at
at
that
that
time.
time
Yeah, he was
with
probably a captain at that time.
with the Metropolitan Police Department?
Metropolitan Police Department.
Okay, and the community event that you were talking about, the very first one with the luncheon, where was that?
That was held at the Arambe House on George Avenue. It was a sort of banquet hall that was owned by Howard University and by Billy Norwood being director of public safety at Howard University. That's how we were able to get that facility for the meeting.
Okay, so there was a need to do and a desire to do community outreach, right? So Noble has this huge community outreach footprint then and now within the chapter. Were there any other issues at that time in the late 70s that prompted the founding of Noble? Like, were there any other conflicts going on or any other issues that Noble wanted to address?
I can't think of any at this. I'm sure there were, but I can't think of any at this time.
What was the relationship like at that time between the black community and the police in DC?
It wasn't very good. And of course, the leaders in the black community were very encouraged to know that there was an organization that was addressing their concern. So, and further ways to let the community know that Noble had been formed and that we were there for them. During National Police Week, we set up a kiosk in the 300 block of Indiana Avenue Northwest in D.C., and it was staffed by Noble members, and we passed out information to people, anyone that would pass. We had flyers about what Noble was all about, and then we passed for 8 hours. It was staffed by Noble members, and then we passed out the information about Noble and let the community know that we were there for them. And then one day during the week, we set up the kiosk in a black community out at Hechinger Mall, out on Benning Road. And we stayed there for 8 hours, passing out information about the organization. And then another day during Police Week, we set up a kiosk in the mall at Prince George's. And again, we passed out information. And it was quite a lot of information was passed out, and people were really elated to hear about an organization that was really interested in addressing their concerns with crime in the community.
All right. I want to kind of go back to a point that we sort of walked into initially. So you're a captain when that symposium occurs in September 1976.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone who was in attendance had already risen to the top rung of leadership within their respective police agencies. But at that time, 1976, we are just off the heels of the civil rights movement. There was the passage of the Civil Rights Act that had already been done, but still in a state in DC and other urban cities where discrimination was fairly rampant. Can you talk a little bit about the challenges in actually getting promoted during the 50s and the 60s and 70s within the police department?
Yeah, it was difficult because, as you know, there was discrimination in the police department. And of course, the discrimination in hiring and discrimination in assignments, because at that time, especially in the early 60s, black police officers didn't ride in the scout car. They were in a patrol. Wasn't in, they were always on foot patrol. And of course, they were in foot patrol in the black neighborhood primarily. So there wasn't much opportunity for blacks at that time. And of course, and black officers didn't ride in the scout car. And so and of course, when it came time for promotion, your activities, your assignments was in an area where you didn't have a lot of activities where you would be exposed to a lot of high publicized crimes or stuff like that that would get your name out there to get you a good promotion. The only thing that you did was walking in a community where you only locked up drunks and disorderlies and so forth, which when it came time for promotion, you didn't have any high crime arrests on your record. So, and they were looking for ways to not give you of course, the exam was based on written part and suitability, and the suitability for promotion came about on how you performed and the number of arrests and so forth. And so, if you didn't have and the suitability counted for more than the written portion of the exam. So if you wrote a high on the exam, but you had a low suitability, you wasn't going to get promoted. So if hiring was discriminatory in the departments, promotions were. So it was difficult for blacks to rise up through the ranks during that time.
Who would do the suitability ratings for the potential, I guess, promotee or promotion applicant?
Came from your supervisor. Came from the supervisor. And at that time, how many black supervisors did you have? So the ratings came from mostly white supervisors. And
so it was a big challenge.
It was a big challenge for getting promoted. And that's when Bertell Jefferson joined up with Tillman O'Brien, and they started in the 1960s. They started a class to help young blacks get promoted, and and once they started their promotional class, and other members of the department saw the success of their class, a lot of other classes were formed throughout the police in the city. And that's from that time, a lot of officers blacks started getting promoted.
Okay. Now, fast forward now to mid 80s with the Washington Metro chapter. Around that time, how many members do you think were in the Washington Metro chapter?
We probably had around 30 members.
Okay.
I think around 30 members.
So I think about the number, like we had 60 top police executives in 1976 that participated in this symposium and birthed Noble. And today in 2026, we have 60 chapters, not just within the nation, but globally. And I think about how far Noble has grown and how much we've expanded and the footprint that Noble has maintained for justice and equity in justice. I think that just understanding the principles upon which Noble was established, understanding the struggles that existed during the time where Noble was formed, understanding the purpose of the organization, the benefits of being a part of the organization, both benefit of having the network of professional associates and friends but also the ability to pour into an organization in whatever area you're passionate about can't be underscored enough, right? So within Noble, we have the Law in Your Community initiative, right? Which is sort of one of the big initiatives for the organization. The motto, let me go back a little bit. Can you tell us how the Law in Your Community initiative actually began and what it was purpose for?
Well, it was again, it was really or started to let youth know and people know. It was geared primarily toward youth. It to let them know that the police would, was there for them, and this was a way that you know that would help, and police were there to help them, and so that would increase uh, the cooperation between the community and the police. And of course, you can only be successful if you have the support of the people that you're trying to help. And so that was the Lauren community was one way to sort of introduce their community to the police, to let them know that the police were there for them, and that was a way for them to address any concerns that they had about the problems and crime in their community, and hopefully the police would do something about it.
And Noble's motto, justice by action, that is one of the major actions, this interaction with the youth and interaction with the community. And even today, when we have these seminars, these Law in Your Community seminars, we teach the youth how to interact with police, how to remain safe during any interactions with the police. It gives the youth an opportunity to understand from a police standpoint, what we see and why and how we navigate those scenes, but it also gives the police an opportunity to understand from the youth the way they see it and how they feel. And it's a great opportunity for communication with the ultimate goal of, hey, when you leave this police interaction, we need you to leave this police interaction safe. We just need you to go home safe. And so thanks for sharing that. The course of time you've been with Noble, these decades that have passed, right? There have been different leaders within the organization. The direction, I imagine, is pretty much stay within the principal core of the purpose of Noble. What would you like to see from Noble moving forward?
Well, like to see, I would say the organization grow. And one thing I have noticed, of course, I'm not as active in Noble as I once was, but I don't see enough top executive level people in Noble. If you go back to the symposium and shortly thereafter, you will look and see all the top level executives from departments were a part of Noble. And that made it, I think that made the organization stronger, because I think that would help in recruitment for the organization if you had more top level executives taking a part in Noble.
Mm. The way Chief Jefferson did.
Yeah. And and not just words, action. And like I said, Chief Jefferson always was, not just a member. He was, part of the executive board and stuff. And so he took and then he did a lot of recruiting for Noble. And so I think that's very important.
Now, because you are the subject matter expert in everything Noble and Washington Metro chapter, if you could give some reasons to compel young officers or even executives to consider joining Noble, what would you say to them to have them think about the organization?
Mainly, I would say how it would benefit them would be it would help them be a better executive because not only would they have their own knowledge and experience, they would be able to tap into the knowledge and experience of top level executives across the country. And that's important. And because I can remember an incident where, and that just helps you in your career. Because I can remember a time that I remember a situation where I was given an assignment to explore there was a program that the DC Police Department was looking at uh, taking on. And I was asked to get some information about the program. And I was told that Baltimore City Police Department had already implemented the program. And so I needed to get information about the program. Right away, I thought by being a Noble member, I called Bishop Robinson, who was not the chief at that time, but he was a high-ranking official in the Baltimore Police Department. I called him. Of course, he knew me at that time, because I'd been a member of Noble, told him what I was looking for, what I needed. It wasn't make an appointment or call this person. His answer was, come on up. I went up. He gave me the information, problem solved. So that's a good, it hadn't been for the Noble contact, I probably would have been calling today, still trying to get the right person or get the information. But that was, that's a good example of how Noble, is important because you have the networking of top executives from across the country that you can call to get assistance from or get information about. So that's important.
And when you retired as a deputy chief,
Deputy chief.
which in sort of contemporary rankings with the Metropolitan Police Department is a commander. It was deputy chief then, commander today. You spoke about those relationships and that network of connections. When you walked away from the Metropolitan Police Department and entered your next chapter in law enforcement, can you talk a little bit about how those networks and those relationships played into that next chapter?
Yes, because at the time I retired, I hadn't really made any plans prior to that, but a position came open for director of public safety at Catholic University, and by having contact with the people at Catholic University, they called me and asked me to serve on a committee to form a committee to select the director of public safety at Catholic University. When I received the information, a light went off in my head that, that the job was written for me. So I called the person back who was in charge of the process and told him I'd like to be an applicant. And he says, great, we'd like to have you for an applicant, but it creates a problem for me. And I said, what is that? And he said, I need someone on that committee that knows something about law enforcement. So right away, what did I do? I called a member of Noble and told them that I would like for them to serve on a committee to select the director of public safety at Catholic University. by being a Noble member, the person agreed to serve on the committee, and guess who got the job? I did.
You did.
So again, I think that played a major part in me getting the job at Catholic University, being being a Noble member. So there are ways that Noble, just to have that connection and so forth. And, there's always, a lot of problems that you have that if you need an answer, there's probably a Noble member that someplace can supply you, can help you with your problem. So it's good to have that networking process. And Noble is a great way to have that networking process.
So it sounds like Noble provides opportunities for professional development and advancement, but also a great deal of personal growth in understanding the challenges, be it past or contemporary, that come with being Black in law enforcement. So I think that's a pretty fitting end to this podcast. And Mr. Goldston, I'm just so grateful for your time. Grateful for all you've poured in to me. I am eternally grateful that I can call you a friend. And the information that you've shared today is now going to be able to be shared with generations of not only Noble members, but folks who may have never heard or would have heard about Noble. So you were there from the very beginning, and you're still at the tip of the spear when it comes to pushing the envelope for the organization forward in the most contemporary means possible through social media and the internet. So thank you so much.
Thank you, and you're quite welcome.
Well, that concludes this podcast episode of The Ride Along, where the Washington Metro chapter of Noble connects legacy, leadership, and the future of justice. I'm your host for today, Randy Griffin. We'll see you guys on the next ride.